Hey, I'm Andy Slade here with Oryx Chassis and Corbin today from Oryx. We're going to talk to you, this is the first in our video series about the fundamentals of marksmanship. So the first thing we want to talk about in the fundamentals of marksmanship is breathing. So your body shape changes every time you breathe in and every time you breathe out, so that can obviously change the relationship from the buttstock and your cheek weld and eye relief if your body shape's changing. So you want to make sure that you're breathing out and shooting on what's called your natural respiratory pause. That's just a fancy way to say at the bottom of your breath. Okay, so it's just going to look like this. Press. All right, so just where you would normally stop breathing out and start breathing in again. Okay, so another thing that's really important with breathing is when we're moving or if we get excited and our heart rate goes up, we want to make sure that we're taking 3 distinct deep breaths to recover that heart rate and get our respiratory rate back in check. Because it's really important that we keep good focus on our eyes so that we can see exactly where the bullet's going, and we want to make sure that we see exactly what's going on downrange with like the wind and things like that. For me, I've found that if you just breathe normally as you normally would, you're more likely to continue a standard breathing cycle. And then if you feel your heart rate really ramp up, just do those kind of like you're talking about, 3 real distinct deep breaths in and out, and then on the last one just melt into your position and take the shot.
Are you going through any sort of like mental checklist? Are you checking your level or your scope or anything while you're breathing, or is it just you're focused right on your breath?
So the last thing that I do before I press the trigger is to breathe out. So you want to make sure that before you go to the trigger, you've done everything in your shot process, and we'll definitely go into a shot process here in a later video. But the last thing you do before you press the trigger, you breathe out, make sure you're on target, and you go to the trigger.
Let's say you're hunting and you're climbing up a hill and you're a little bit winded. You get to the top and you spot your animal right as you get there, but you got that natural breathing rhythm where your heart's elevated and stuff like that. Say those 3 breaths, you're just not quite there. Do you continue breathing, or you train yourself and you force yourself to take that shot at that 3rd breath, or what do you recommend in that sort of scenario?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what we've found is that if you are resting, you normally breathe out to the same place every time, and then if your heart rate goes up, you normally breathe in more deeply, but you still breathe out to the same place. So it's the most consistent place in your breathing cycle. So if you really need to go ahead and take that shot, it's still gonna work because you're getting the oxygen content that you need to your body by properly breathing. But by shooting on that natural respiratory pause, that's the place that's gonna be the most consistent in your body shape to allow you to have a consistent shot. So when we're breathing, what you'll see is if you're properly connected to the rifle, you should see that as you breathe in, you'll see usually that the reticle goes down, and then when you breathe out, the reticle goes back up, and that's just because the body shape's changing. So the only thing that changes from position to position with our breathing is just that we want to make sure that we have good natural point of aim, so that when we breathe out, you're breathing out to the same place every time, and that place is where you're actually aiming at on the target. So what we see sometimes is guys will try to maybe breathe halfway out because that's where the reticle will stop on the target, when in actuality they should breathe all the way out, and wherever that reticle goes, then we build that position back up so that the reticle's center of the target when they're in their resting position.
Do you hold your breath? Like once you breathe out, are you holding it for a few seconds, or just to make your shot and make sure you're good, or you kind of, as soon as your crosshair lands on that?
Good question. So we're gonna hold that pause, that natural respiratory pause, for no more than 4 to 6 seconds. So if you hold it longer than 6 seconds, what you'll start to see is your eyes lose oxygen content and your focus won't be quite as sharp. So you won't be able to see exactly where that bullet hits, which is really important if you need to make a follow-up. So hold that breath for no more than 4 to 6 seconds.
Okay, and then you say if you're holding that 6 seconds and you're a little bit shaky, then you just go ahead and take another full breath, or another couple of breaths, or?
Yep, so what we would do is just go back to index. So we're just gonna move our finger right back off the trigger so we don't accidentally depress the trigger while we're breathing. So go back to index, breathe in and out, and as long as you feel like you're ready to take your shot, go back to the trigger and continue with your shot process. I mean, you can hold your breath for over a minute, right? But that 4 to 6 second window is enough time that you still have good oxygen content to your eyes and your muscles, so that you're not developing any lactic acid or anything weird from being exerted. And you also have enough time to run your shot process so you can get through it and actually press the trigger to the rear. So that actually works out pretty well. if it takes a lot of energy for you to move from one position to another, your heart rate's going to ramp, and that's also going to ramp up your respiratory rate. It's going to make you breathe a lot faster or more deeply. So by being in better shape, maybe getting some exercise between range trips, it'll help you be in a lot better position as far as breathing.
Okay. What sort of drills do you do that allow you to practice this sort of breath or breathing?
So one of the things that we'll get into here in a little bit is looking at what it actually looks like through the scope. And what I'm looking to make sure of is that I go to my natural point of aim, and when I breathe out, I want to make sure that that natural point of aim, or where the reticle is when we're relaxed, is in the same place every time when I breathe out. So as long as when I breathe out, that reticle goes to the same place each time, it's going to make sure that we have good natural point of aim and a good breathing strategy.